Despite having only about 1/14 of Japan's maritime area, South Korea still harvests over 4 million tons of seafood annually, securing its place among the world's high-tech fisheries powerhouses, with a total value reaching $8 billion USD. Few people know that South Korea's fishing industry once stood on the brink of resource depletion and a severe fishing ground crisis, facing pressure from massive Chinese fishing fleets while being constrained by limited fishing areas and declining marine resources. So how did South Korea turn the tide, not just surviving, but becoming a model of ocean industrialization? In today's video, let's join Agriculture Insight as we explore how South Koreans transform their seas into a nationwide production system, gradually turning fisheries into a strategic pillar of food security over decades. Let's dive in. With an annual catch of over 300,000 tons, South Korea ranks among the top 3 mackerel-producing countries in the world, behind China and Japan. Beyond generating hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue, mackerel is closely tied to the harsh years following the Korean War, when it served as an affordable source of protein, helping sustain over 20 million Koreans amid severe food shortages. Today, this fish is not only a cultural symbol, featured in the fragrant grilled dish godeungyeogui on Korean dining tables, but also one of the key pillars of the nation's fisheries industry. From May to October, as warm monsoon winds sweep across the eastern waters of the Korean peninsula, the silver migration, the season of the nation's iconic mackerel, officially begins. Compared to the world's leading mackerel producers, South Korea is no less advanced in technology or fishing operations. Its modern fleets are equipped with multi-layer sonar, radar, and precise navigation systems. Instead of relying on experience alone, sonar has become an eye beneath the ocean, allowing fishermen to monitor the structure, density, and movement of fish schools in real time. Massive purse seine nets remain the optimal solution for harvesting large migratory mackerel schools. When the moment is right, with a single command, the net, spanning hundreds of meters, rapidly closes, enclosing millions of fish at once. Immediately after, high-capacity vacuum pumps draw the fish directly from the net onto the vessel through enclosed pipes, reducing handling time and minimizing damage to preserve freshness. And in less than 30 minutes, over 200 tons of fish can disappear from the ocean, a massive yield that once required an entire fishing village weeks at sea to achieve. Despite using similar technologies and fishing methods, South Korea deliberately pursues a balance between volume and value, rather than maximizing output like China or pushing quality to extremes like Japan. This approach allows South Korea to both sustain its fish stocks and shape a stable, long-term mackerel industry. From June to November each year, the eastern waters of South Korea become bustling with thousands of squid fishing vessels, supporting one of the country's most valuable fisheries and generating over $1 billion USD annually. Unlike species such as tuna or mackerel, which are typically harvested during the day, squid fishing takes place almost entirely at night. This is due to the squid's distinctive phototactic behavior. When a strong light appears in a dark environment, they quickly swim toward the source in search of prey. Taking advantage of this characteristic, modern squid fishing vessels measuring 30 to 60 meters in length are equipped with high-powered LED lighting systems, capable of illuminating vast areas of the sea spanning hundreds of meters. On each vessel, the automated squid jigging system, originally developed in the 1970s, has been significantly upgraded with modern technology. The setup includes hundreds of luminous artificial lures, continuously operated by machines that lower and retrieve them in steady, rhythmic motion. At the same time, fishermen use radar and sonar to precisely locate squid schools at depths ranging from 50 to 150 meters in cold waters. Once the squid have gathered near the surface, the automated jigging system immediately operates at full capacity. Within just a few hours, each vessel can haul in between 1 to 3 tons of squid, an impressive figure compared to traditional fishing methods. After being brought on board, the squid are sorted and cleaned immediately. For Korean fishermen, squid are not only a primary source of income, but also a gamble in the night sea, where every trip comes with high fuel costs, harsh weather, and intense competition from international fleets. After docking at ports such as Sokcho or Busan, the squid are quickly transported to processing plants to be turned into a wide variety of products. Notably, in South Korea, the live dancing squid dish, known as sanakshi, has become a unique culinary symbol, reflecting the country's strong preference for extremely fresh seafood, despite ongoing controversies surrounding it. Not only does seaweed contribute nearly 50% of the Earth's oxygen, it is also one of the most mineral-rich ocean foods on the planet. And when it comes to seaweed, people immediately think of South Korea, a country known for its vast offshore seaweed farms. In the world of Korean seaweed, the most prominent is gim, a thin layer of seaweed that nearly disappeared after 1949, until British biologist Kathleen Drew Baker decoded its hidden life cycle, enabling humans to cultivate it for the first time. From the laboratory to the open sea, thousands of stakes transform the water's surface into seaweed farms, stretching across thousands of hectares, laying the foundation for a global seaweed powerhouse. From around November, when sea temperatures drop below 12 degrees Celsius, the seaweed begins to grow rapidly, as if a biological switch has been turned on. Within just a few weeks, thin blades measuring 15 to 20 centimeters blanket long stretches of nets extending for kilometers. That is when the drum harvesters appear. Steel cylinders over 1 meter in diameter, operating like giant harvesting wheels on the ocean's surface. As vessels move along the net lines, rotating blades spin thousands of times per minute, carefully trimming only the upper portion of the seaweed, while leaving about 5 centimeters of the base intact so it can regrow for the next harvest. This allows a single stretch of net to yield multiple harvests in one season, a true form of rice farming on the ocean. Immediately after being cut, the seaweed is suctioned into a preliminary washing system on board, then mechanically pressed to remove excess water. Within minutes, fresh seaweed is compressed into netted bundles weighing up to 800 kilograms, ready to be transported ashore the same night. Korean seaweed is especially renowned for its superior quality and strict production standards. Cultivated in cold, nutrient-rich waters, it develops a deep color, natural sweetness, and a distinctive crisp texture. After harvesting, it is quickly processed and dried to preserve its flavor and nutritional value. This combination of ideal natural conditions and advanced processing techniques has made Korean seaweed one of the most sought-after products in the global market. Abalone, one of the 4 great delicacies of the sea, is not only a culinary symbol, but also a high-value pillar of South Korea's seafood industry. Each year, with just around 20,000 hectares of coastal aquaculture, the sector generates nearly $700 million, elevating the country's reputation on the global fine dining map. Abalone are first bred in high-tech hatcheries under strict environmental and water quality control standards. Once they reach a certain size, they are transferred to offshore cage systems for grow-out. Their primary diet consists of nutrient-rich natural seaweed. Combined with clean waters, stable temperatures, and a nutrient-rich ecosystem, South Korea offers ideal conditions for producing abalone with thick flesh, deep sweetness, and top-tier quality. The harvesting process for abalone here begins when culture trays are lifted from the sea using automated hoists. Each tray holds around 200 to 300 individuals, weighing dozens of kilograms. As soon as they leave the water, the abalone are quickly rinsed to remove algae and sediment, a fast but essential preparation step before the most critical stage of the entire process. What follows is a precise battle of skill that determines their commercial value. Workers use specialized tools to carefully insert along the shell's edge, detaching each abalone from its surface while preserving the foot, the single attachment muscle, yet also the most valuable part. This step demands exceptional tactile precision, as even slight misapplied force can tear the muscle, immediately downgrading the product's quality. On the premium seafood market, abalone from South Korea is ranked among the finest, second only to wild varieties from Japan. Prices can reach 80 to 120 USDs per kilogram for large live specimens, 2 to 3 times higher than mass-farmed abalone from China, where production is optimized at an industrial scale, but often lacks the firm texture, deep sweetness, and survival rate achieved through Korea's tightly controlled aquaculture systems. Whether a seasoned foodie or a first-time explorer of Korean cuisine, almost no one is unfamiliar with the allure of octopus, the true vedette of seafood in South Korea. Unlike squid, which are drawn to the surface by bright lights, octopus are masters of ambush on the seafloor. They do not chase, they wait. As a result, in places like Sokcho and Ulleungdo, fishermen do not pursue their catch, but instead lower artificial hones to the seabed, allowing the octopus to enter the trap on their own. The key lies in the bait: crabs, fish scraps, and offal, highly attractive food sources that can raise the capture rate to 70 to 80%. Once prepared, the traps are deployed in long lines, spaced about 10 to 15 meters apart, forming vast fields of traps across the seafloor. The most common designs are cylindrical cages made of plastic or metal with narrow openings, alongside ceramic pots or plastic tubes that mimic natural shelters. Beneath cold waters tens of meters deep, hundreds of these traps are linked into extended lines, each preloaded with bait. But the moment an octopus crawls inside, the one-way entrance transforms what seemed like a safe refuge into a trap with almost no way out. By dawn, when the sea is still veiled in a thin layer of mist, boats return to their trap lines. Each rope is slowly hauled up by hand or through small pulleys, lifting one pot after another from the water, growing heavier with every meter. If the timing is right, inside are octopuses weighing dozens of kilograms, but just a few hours too late, and an entire line can come up nearly empty. Unlike common octopus that weigh only a few kilograms, giant octopus require fishermen to use steel hooks and pulleys to bring them on board. While in Hokkaido, Japan, they can sometimes be controlled with specialized rods. In the East Sea of South Korea, these 30 to 50 kilograms creatures cling tightly and thrash violently, turning each haul into a real struggle between humans and a powerful deep-sea animal. From the deck, the freshly caught octopus are sent directly to coastal seafood markets and processing facilities, quickly making their way onto dining tables in the famous sanaki, where the tentacles still twitch gently on the plate, as if they have yet to realize that their journey at sea has come to an end. Now, let's step into the world of Japanese whales and uncover fascinating, little-known facts before exploring the massive hunting operations and processing chain behind these ocean giants. The minke whale is a small baleen whale, measuring about 7 to 10 meters in length and weighing up to nearly 10 tons. It can reach speeds of over 30 kilometers per hour when accelerating. With an average lifespan of around 50 years, minke whales grow slowly, and females typically give birth to only one calf after nearly a year of pregnancy, a trait that makes resource management particularly sensitive. After World War II, whale meat once accounted for nearly 50% of Japan's total meat consumption during a time of severe food shortages. However, as the economy recovered and food options diversified, consumption declined sharply and now represents only about 0.1% of the nation's total meat intake. Even so, Japan continues to harvest approximately 200 to 300 minke whales each year within its exclusive economic zone, maintaining that the practice is legal and regulated. Minke whale meat has a distinctive dark red color due to its high myoglobin content, even deeper in tone than beef. The texture is firm, fine-grained, and relatively lean. When eaten raw, it has a mild sweetness with a subtle hint of the sea. When grilled, its flavor is often described as a blend between beef and tuna. It is rich in protein, iron, and omega-3 fatty acids, but because it may contain mercury, consumption is generally recommended in moderation. Whaling in Japan has become the center of one of the most prolonged and divisive debates in the modern world. The so-called whale war intensified when Japan withdrew from the International Whaling Commission, which had imposed a commercial whaling moratorium in 1986. Conservation groups such as Sea Shepherd Conservation Society have repeatedly confronted whaling vessels at sea, turning the issue into a global media flashpoint. Today, the story of Japanese whaling is no longer just about food. It represents the intersection of tradition, science, economics, and conservation, where a nearly 10-ton marine giant has become a symbol of how humanity chooses to exploit or protect nature in the 21st century. Whale reproduction is a slow yet highly strategic cycle, unfolding across the vast ocean. In species such as the minke whale, the breeding season typically occurs in winter, from around December to March, when they leave cold, food-rich waters and migrate toward warmer seas. Male whales produce sequences of low-frequency sounds that can travel for dozens of kilometers underwater. The more stable, rhythmic, and sustained the calls, the stronger the signal of health and vitality. Essentially a biological resume transmitted through the sea. After fertilization, the female carries her calf for about 10 to 11 months. Calving usually takes place in late winter or early spring, in warm, calmer waters where survival rates are higher. Almost always, a single calf is born, measuring about 2 to 3 meters in length and weighing close to a ton. During the first 6 months, the calf feeds on its mother's rich, high-fat milk, growing rapidly in preparation for its first migration. Throughout this time, the mother remains close, teaching her calf how to surface for air, how to dive, and how to adapt to the rhythms of the ocean. A slow but deliberate investment characteristic of one of the ocean's most powerful marine mammals. Japan's hunting of the minke whale today primarily takes place within its 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone, offshore from areas such as Hokkaido, the Sanriku coast, and parts of the Sea of Japan. The season typically begins in late spring and extends into early autumn when sea conditions are more stable and whales move along established feeding routes. Each whaling vessel usually carries around 15 to 25 crew members, including a captain, navigators, engineers, and a specialized harpoon team. The primary tool is a bow-mounted harpoon cannon fitted with an explosive tip, a technology refined over more than a century to improve accuracy and shorten the time needed to secure the animal. The strategy does not rely on high-speed pursuit, but rather on tracking migration patterns and carefully observing the whale's surfacing behavior. Once a target is identified, the vessel approaches from behind, or at an angle to maintain a steady firing position, timing the shot to the brief moment the whale surfaces to breathe, often lasting only a few seconds. All operations are conducted under annual quotas and require detailed catch reporting at the end of each season. Across thousands of square kilometers of open sea, the hunt represents a fusion of traditional seafaring knowledge and modern mechanical precision, a practice defined more by calculation than by force. When a minke whale is fully secured on deck, the clock essentially starts ticking. In the first few minutes, a processing team, often around 20 crew members, must stabilize the nearly 10-meter-long body using steel hooks, chains, and hydraulic winches to prevent it from shifting as the vessel continues to roll with the waves. The first step is opening the abdominal cavity. Specialized knives with blades measuring 40 to 60 centimeters are used to make a precise incision along the belly. Once the cavity is opened, internal pressure is released, making the next stages safer. The organs are removed in sequence. The stomach and intestines first to reduce weight, followed by the heart, liver, and lungs. The stomach alone can weigh up to 300 kilograms, depending on its contents. Next comes the removal of the blubber, a thick layer of fat averaging 10 to 20 centimeters, covering the body like a biological shield. The fat is cut in long parallel strips, then lifted in massive sections weighing hundreds of kilograms using steel hooks and winches. In the 19th century, blubber was rendered into industrial oil. Today, it is primarily used for culinary purposes or oil extraction. Once the blubber is removed, the deep red muscle beneath becomes visible. The long back muscles, considered the most valuable, are separated into large sections. Industrial saws are used to detach ribs and vertebrae. The meat is then rinsed with clean seawater and transferred immediately into cold storage maintained at 0 to 4 degrees Celsius. The fins and tail are processed last. The tail, which generates the whale's propulsion, contains especially dense and powerful muscle fibers, making it structurally tougher than the rest of the body. The entire procedure typically takes 3 to 4 hours, depending on sea conditions. Every movement follows a fixed sequence, coordinated precisely between people and machinery, a massive processing operation carried out at sea, where even minutes of delay can affect the final product's quality. Once properly chilled, the meat moves to the portioning and packaging stage. Large muscle blocks are cut into standardized commercial portions, typically weighing 2 to 5 kilograms, or sliced thinner depending on market demand. Each piece is inspected for color, texture, and core temperature before being vacuum sealed to minimize oxidation and preserve quality. The packages are then labeled with processing dates and harvest location details. Finally, the products are stored in deep freeze facilities at approximately 20 degrees to 30 degrees Celsius, ready for distribution to seafood markets, restaurants, or further processing centers. Now, have a napkin ready because you might start craving it once you see how minke whale is transformed into sushi. Minke whale meat is typically divided into 3 main cuts. The back loin, deep red, lean, and fine-grained, considered the most premium. The belly, lightly marbled and softer with a richer mouthfeel. And the section near the tail, where the muscle fibers are thicker and firmer. For sushi, chefs prefer the back loin close to the spine because of its intense, ruby-like color and natural elasticity when sliced. Whale sushi is cut thin, about 3 to 5 millimeters, preserving tenderness while still allowing the structure of the muscle fibers to be felt. Placed over warm vinegared rice, the dark red slice contrasts strikingly with the white grains, minimal yet visually bold. Its flavor is often described as a cross between lean beef and ocean tuna. Rich, slightly sweet, with a subtle marine note, but not overly fishy. Many restaurants serve it as traditional nigiri, with just a touch of wasabi and a light dip in soy sauce to avoid overpowering the natural taste. In some places, the surface is briefly seared, aburi, releasing a faint aroma from the thin layer of fat. In Japan, whale meat generally sells for around $15 to $30 per kilogram, depending on the cut and supply. In specialty restaurants, a single piece of whale sushi may cost $4 to $8. Though not widely consumed, those deep red slices on a traditional sushi counter still carry a sense of rarity and boldness, enough to tempt the curious into trying it at least once. But beyond meat and its visible value, there's something few people expect: a quiet treasure of the ocean: whale poop. When whales dive hundreds of meters to feed and then return to the surface to breathe and defecate, they transport iron and nutrients from the deep sea back into sunlit waters. A single large whale can release hundreds of kilograms of waste per day, fueling what scientists call the whale pump. This natural fertilization boosts phytoplankton growth, the microscopic organisms responsible for producing nearly 50% of the oxygen we breathe, while also helping absorb carbon from the atmosphere. Yet there is another, far rarer form of waste, and far more valuable: ambergris. This substance forms almost exclusively inside the digestive system of the sperm whale as it processes squid. After drifting at sea for years, the rough, waxy mass oxidizes under sun and salt water, transforming from a harsh odor into a warm, sweet, complex scent. In the luxury perfume industry, ambergris has been valued at $20,000 to $50,000 per kilogram for its extraordinary ability to fix and extend fragrance longevity for hours, even days. From an unremarkable floating lump to floating gold, it proves that the ocean hides treasures in the most unexpected forms. For most of the world, crickets are just dirty insects. But in Thailand, they are a sought-after delicacy, generating more than $100 million in annual economic value. Everything begins with trays of moist soil, where millions of female crickets gather to lay eggs, producing around 15 million eggs from over 900 species in what appears to be a room filled only with dirt. After about 7 to 9 days, these tiny eggs begin to hatch, turning the once quiet room into a space where millions of baby crickets emerge at the same time, marking the start of a life cycle that lasts only about 6 weeks. The crickets are raised in enclosed rooms, where thousands of egg cartons are stacked like miniature apartment buildings, creating an ideal habitat for them to grow. Remarkably, this entire city of nearly 3 million crickets is actually managed by just 3 people. Inside, the temperature is constantly maintained at around 30 degrees Celsius, because even a slight drop can slow the cricket's growth, while excessive heat can quickly weaken and collapse the entire colony. Once they are large enough, the crickets are moved to bigger rearing rooms, where they are fed a mixture of corn, soybeans, and flaxseed, consuming nearly 1,000 pounds of feed each day. After about 6 weeks, crickets reach maturity and are ready for harvest. Farmers stop feeding them for 1 to 2 days to clean their digestive systems, then use nets or sieves to collect them from the rearing containers. The crickets are sorted, with weak or dead ones removed, then cleaned. They can be sold fresh, frozen, or dried. In some places, crickets are also processed into protein-rich powder, considered by many to be a sustainable food source for the future. In Thailand, crickets are often roasted crispy like potato chips, and even ground into protein flour to make cakes and various innovative foods. This tiny insect not only contains more protein than beef, but also provides essential nutrients and has a significantly lower environmental impact compared to many traditional protein sources. For those who have never tried this unusual dish, it might seem a bit intimidating. But in reality, crickets taste much better than you might expect. Whole crickets are crispy and lightly fatty like a snack, with a subtle roasted, nutty flavor. When fried or grilled, they even have an aroma similar to dried shrimp. Cricket powder, on the other hand, is mild and slightly nutty, like grains, making it easy to use in many dishes. So if you ever visit Thailand, would you dare to try? For over 3 decades, Thailand has maintained its position as the world's #1 rice exporter and has never fallen out of the global top 3. It is no exaggeration to call Thailand the king of rice worldwide. Despite intense competition from Vietnam and India, Thailand is still the first name that comes to mind for many people around the world when rice is mentioned. With 40% of its agricultural land dedicated to rice cultivation, an annual output exceeding 30 million tons, and around $6 billion in export revenue, rice has become a strategic pillar of the country's agricultural economy. In the vital Chao Phraya River basin, rice fields can be as vast as an entire city like San Francisco. At such a massive scale, traditional manual planting is no longer feasible. Instead, modern rice transplanters are widely used, boosting productivity by up to 20 times and helping address the growing labor shortage faced by Thai farmers. The most common machines in Thailand today are 6 to 8 row rice transplanters, favored for their reasonable cost and ease of operation. At the front, dozens of seedling trays are loaded, while at the back, mechanical arms continuously pick, separate, and plant small clumps of rice into the field in perfectly straight rows as the machine slowly glides over the water. In just 1 hour, these modern machines can handle up to 2 hectares of land, equivalent to about 50 manual laborers working continuously. Thanks to RTK GPS with an accuracy of under 2 centimeters, along with sensors that automatically adjust planting depth, each seedling is placed with near-perfect precision. Meanwhile, the operator simply sits in the cabin and manages the entire field via an electronic display. About 3 months after the young seedlings are planted, the harvest season begins in Thailand. Unlike wheat harvesters in the United States that operate on dry land, rice harvesters must work in deep mud and soft fields prone to sinking. As a result, they are designed to be 2 to 3 times more compact, equipped with wide tracks or wheels, automatic leveling systems, and cutting threshing mechanisms that remain stable even when half submerged in water. Inside the machine, threshing systems and airflow fans separate the grains from the straw within seconds, transferring the rice directly into sealed storage tanks. Although Thailand leads the world in scale and output, it is not a technological powerhouse. That is why most of its agricultural machinery and technology are imported from Japan, home to global leaders in rice mechanization such as Kubota and Yanmar. In recent years, Thailand has shifted away from pursuing maximum output at all costs and instead adopted a strategy focused on high-quality rice, particularly fragrant rice for export. However, high production costs, relatively low yields, and a strong domestic currency keep Thai rice prices elevated, reducing its competitiveness in the low-cost segment compared to India and Vietnam. Weighing up to 7 tons and standing taller than a truck, elephants are often associated with wild forests. But in Thailand, they are deeply woven into human life as sacred cultural symbols. An adult elephant in Thailand can consume up to 150 to 200 kilograms of food per day, including grass, bananas, bamboo, sugarcane, watermelon, and pumpkin, while also drinking 100 to 200 liters of water. As a result, caring for a single elephant can sometimes be as costly as maintaining an entire herd of cattle. After hours of eating and moving, elephants almost inevitably need a daily bath. An adult elephant can suck up 8 to 10 liters of water in a single trunkful and spray it over its body like a living shower. Beyond that, they often roll in mud, creating a natural sunscreen layer that protects their thick yet sensitive skin from insects and the tropical heat. In some rural areas of Thailand, elephants are not only massive animals of the jungle, but also a means of daily transportation. There are even places where children ride elephants to school. In Surin, hundreds of elephants also parade alongside locals during the famous Elephant Festival, as an integral part of local life and culture. Beyond agriculture on land, Thailand also boasts an entire underwater farming industry, exporting over 600,000 tons of shrimp each year and generating around $4 billion in revenue. About 90% of this output is white-leg shrimp, a fast-growing species with high survival rates and strong disease resistance, almost designed for industrial farming and especially well-suited to Thailand's hot, humid tropical climate. In the southern region, the country's shrimp capital, intensive farming operations stretch across hundreds of hectares. The ponds are built to industrial standards with lined bottoms, high stocking densities, and continuous 24/7 operation of paddle wheels and aeration systems to maintain dissolved oxygen levels and tightly control the farming environment. The process begins at high-tech hatcheries, where broodstock shrimp are genetically selected, strictly quarantined, and bred in sterile environments. The larvae are then reared in closed tanks for 20-25 days before being transferred to grow-out ponds. Throughout the roughly 3-month farming cycle, the entire system is closely monitored. Temperature, salinity, pH, and dissolved oxygen levels are all controlled using sensors and automated software. Feeding is scheduled with precision to optimize growth rates while minimizing water pollution. When shrimp reach market size, they enter the harvest stage, a key step that directly affects final quality. Water levels are gradually lowered to concentrate the shrimp, making harvesting more efficient and reducing losses. Nets or drainage systems are carefully used to avoid stress, which can impact meat quality. Immediately after being collected, the shrimp are placed in cold water to preserve freshness. The entire process is carried out quickly and synchronized with refrigerated transport. Immediately after harvest, the shrimp are transported directly to the processing plant. Here, they are washed, sorted, and processed according to specific standards. Next, the shrimp are rapidly frozen at deep temperatures of around -35 to 40 degrees Celsius to lock in freshness within a short time, preserving their texture and flavor. Finally, the products are packaged and stored in cold storage before being exported to international markets. To create a finished piece of stockfish, time matters more than any technology. Fresh cod must be hung outdoors for 3 to 5 months, then left to further mature so its flavor can fully develop. This harsh process reduces 5 kilograms of fresh fish to just 1 kilogram of stockfish. Each piece a crystallization of loss and patience. In its dried state, stockfish is almost wood-like, impossible to cook immediately. It must be soaked in water for days to awaken the structure of the flesh. Once revived, it becomes a nutrient-dense food, rich in protein and minerals, having sustained sailors on long voyages across icy oceans for centuries. Today, stockfish has moved far beyond its role as survival food. In Italy, especially in Venice and the Veneto region, it is a prized ingredient in traditional cuisine. In Africa, particularly Nigeria, stockfish is revered as a powerful umami seasoning, deeply woven into everyday cooking. At present, premium stockfish can reach prices of up to $150 per kilogram, rivaling or even surpassing Alaskan king crab. This price reflects a clear market paradox: limited supply paired with ever-growing value. Stockfish exports alone generate nearly $85 million, transforming a seemingly humble dried fish into a global luxury commodity. The answer to the high price of stockfish begins with the Arctic Scray cod season, a migration of more than 1,000 kilometers from the Barents Sea to Norway's coastal waters, and one of the few moments each year when the fish reaches peak quality. At this stage, Scray cod has a high lean meat ratio, low fat content, and muscle fibers firm enough to withstand natural air drying. The core fishing season starts in early spring and lasts only 3 to 4 months, forcing vessels to head out continuously. Miss this narrow window and the cod moves past its ideal biological phase. Muscle tissue retains more water and becomes unsuitable for long-term drying. As the schools arrive near shore to spawn, fishermen enter the season using 2 traditional methods. The most common is gill netting, nets suspended in the water column and anchored along ocean currents. Cod are typically caught horizontally by the gills, minimizing body impact against the net and reducing surface damage during hauls that can last dozens of continuous hours. The second method is longlining, lines stretching several kilometers and fitted with thousands of hooks. While yields are lower, each fish is hauled up individually along a vertical axis, avoiding compression. Reduced mechanical stress prevents skin abrasion, blood pooling within muscle fibers, and structural damage, critical conditions for enduring more than 100 days of wind drying. All of this takes place in the volatile Arctic seas. On calm days, a small fishing vessel may land 1 to 3 tons of cod. On others, boats return empty-handed due to strong winds, heavy swells, or shifting fish stocks. It is precisely this uncertainty that has kept stockfish from ever becoming a mass-market product. Yet it has endured for centuries, sustained by perfect timing, careful harvesting, and a measure of luck granted by the sea itself. But the catch is only half the journey. Right on the deck, as the cod are hauled up from the icy depths, a small hand processing line is already in motion. In temperatures hovering around -4 degrees Celsius, the fishermen work tirelessly amid the biting wind and spray. Each voyage brings in over 15 tons of cod, and every fish is handled immediately on site, usually by cutting the gills or making a shallow incision near the neck to drain the blood. This quick treatment helps preserve the freshness, stabilize the pH of the flesh, and prevent bacterial growth throughout the long, restless hours at sea. When the vessel docks, crates of cod are immediately transferred to the processing plant by the harbor. The chill of the sea still clings to their scales as they move along the first conveyor line, a short 50-meter path linking the ocean straight to the cutting tables. Here, the full processing begins. Each fish is beheaded, gutted, and cleaned with swift, precise strokes. Skilled workers use slender knives, slicing diagonally along the belly to open the cavity without rupturing the gallbladder or intestines, preserving the fish's clean flavor and bright flesh. Each worker can process up to 1,200 fish during an 8-hour shift, a rhythm sustained only by years of experience and muscle memory. The entrails are removed in a single decisive motion, halting internal decay, and the fish are then rinsed in seawater, chilled to 2 degrees Celsius to stabilize the texture. From there, they're laid on racks or sent to drying, freezing, or salting rooms, depending on the final product. The entire process takes only a few minutes. Yet every precise cut determines the quality of the catch that will become premium stockfish, celebrated across Northern Europe as the purest taste of the cold sea. From this point, the journey of stockfish enters its defining stage, the moment when its true value takes shape in a way no other dried fish can replicate. After processing, thousands of cod are hung outdoors on vast wooden racks, stretching for nearly 300 meters along the Lofoten shoreline, where the cold North Atlantic wind blows day and night. The drying frames are engineered with precision. Sturdy A-shaped beams disperse wind pressure and weight, while the high, open crossbars allow ocean air to circulate freely around each hanging pair, ensuring a natural yet meticulously controlled drying process. Because the body and head dry at different rates, they are hung separately, but all follow the same traditional posture: head down, belly open, allowing gravity to draw out moisture evenly. Over the course of 2,800 hours, with air temperatures rarely rising above 5 degrees Celsius and humidity hovering around 70%, the fish gradually dry from the inside out without ever spoiling. The muscle fibers tighten, proteins and collagen fuse together, forming a dense, elastic texture, the secret that allows stockfish to keep naturally for more than 3 years without a grain of salt or any preservative. When the fish reach their equilibrium point, reduced to roughly 1/3 of their original weight, they are moved into curing lofts to lock in moisture balance and flavor. Under the pale northern light, thousands of white cod hang in rows like an inverted forest swaying in the wind, monumental yet silent, marking the near completion of the journey from deep ocean to Norway's most revered delicacy, the legendary stockfish. When the drying season ends, the stockfish harvest begins. Along the long rows of wooden racks by the coast, hundreds of workers move in rhythm, carefully taking down each pair of cod hardened by months of wind and salt. By this stage, each fish has lost nearly 3/4 of its original weight, the body firm, the flesh translucent like amber. A light tap produces a crisp knock, the unmistakable sign that the fish has reached perfect dryness. The harvest continues for 7 to 10 days, from dawn until the last light fades behind the snow-covered peaks. On site, the fish are sorted by size, color, and dryness, before being moved to storage for final stabilization. The finest batches, pale, evenly dried, and silky in texture, are marked for export to Italy, Portugal, and Japan, where stockfish is regarded as a culinary emblem of the northern seas. And so, each season, nearly 2 million cod are taken down from the racks across the Lofoten Islands, completing the long, disciplined cycle of the cold sea. After leaving the outdoor racks, stockfish is still not considered a finished product. It is moved into curing lofts for another 2 to 3 months to complete the moisture balancing stage. Here, the residual water within the flesh doesn't evaporate abruptly but slowly migrates from the core to the surface, allowing the texture to stabilize, preventing cracking, off flavors, and preserving the integrity of aroma compounds for years, the key to its remarkable shelf life without salt or preservatives. Even within the same batch, curing times can vary by several weeks due to the natural biological differences among individual fish. Although the surface may appear dry, slow-forming internal mold can still occur. For this reason, stockfish is inspected regularly by hand and scent, a traditional yet highly precise method, perfected through generations of experience. Only after passing this final stage does the stockfish qualify for export to key markets such as Italy and Nigeria, completing the journey of a dried fish that has become a true heritage craft. When it enters the kitchen, stockfish is no longer a convenient food, but an ingredient that demands knowledge and patience. Its almost 100% dryness means every dish must begin with rehydration. The fish is soaked in cold water for several days, sometimes combined with mechanical pounding, to reopen the protein fibers before cooking. Once revived, the flesh of stockfish gains a unique density and elasticity, offering depth and character far beyond that of fresh or salted fish. This makes it especially suited for slow-cooked stews, where gentle heat and long simmering gradually unfold the proteins, creating a clean, deep, and lingering umami flavor. In Italy and Norway, stockfish often appears in slow-simmered stews with tomatoes, onions, olive oil, or light broths that highlight the purity of the fish. Meanwhile, variations pairing stockfish with potatoes are popular across northern Italy and Scandinavia, where starch softens its chew and balances its intensity, producing dishes that are simple yet remarkably profound in flavor.